My fiancée looked at me across the marble kitchen island and said, "You can be replaced," like she was commenting on a broken appliance. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "Then watch me walk away." And something inside her eyes flickered in a way I didn't fully understand yet. Her name was Sloane Harrington. We lived in a newly renovated townhouse in Greenwich, Connecticut, surrounded by quiet streets, manicured hedges, and people who pretended not to listen while hearing everything. On paper, we were perfect. I was Nolan Prescott, a senior financial analyst at a respected investment firm, and she came from a family whose last name opened doors without knocking. But perfection has a way of hiding fractures until the pressure builds enough to split everything open. And that night it did. It didn't start with that sentence. It started months earlier in smaller ways that didn't seem dangerous at first. Her tone changing during conversations, her decisions becoming unilateral, her subtle reminders that her world had options. "I've had better offers before," she once said casually while scrolling through her phone. Not about jobs, about people. At first, I laughed it off. I told myself it was just her way of asserting independence. I told myself strong women sometimes say sharp things. I told myself love required patience. But patience slowly turned into quiet tolerance, and tolerance turned into something else. One evening, we were at a dinner party hosted by Carter Whitfield and his wife Margot Thornton. The kind of dinner where everyone speaks softly but calculates everything. Sloane sat beside me, elegant as always, but distant. Someone asked how the wedding planning was going. She smiled, lifted her glass, and said, "We'll see if it even happens." The table laughed lightly. I didn't. On the drive home, I asked her what that meant. She shrugged. "I just don't like feeling locked into something. Something. Not us. Something." That word stayed with me longer than it should have. Weeks passed, and the distance grew more structured, less accidental, more deliberate. She began traveling more. Business trips that extended into weekends. Calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. One night, I found myself sitting alone in our living room, staring at the engagement ring box I had saved from the proposal. Not because I doubted her, but because I was starting to doubt myself. Before we go further, think about this for a moment. If someone you loved started making you feel optional instead of chosen, would you confront it immediately, or would you wait and hope it corrects itself? I chose to wait, and that choice quietly rewrote everything that followed. The confrontation finally came on a Thursday evening. No special reason. No dramatic setup. Just accumulated silence that had nowhere else to go. She stood in the kitchen, reviewing emails when I said, "Do you still want this?" She didn't look up at first. "Want what?" "This," I said, gesturing between us. That's when she looked at me. Calm, measured, almost detached. "You're a good person, Nolan," she said. "But don't confuse that with being irreplaceable." There it was. You could be replaced. The words didn't echo loudly. They landed quietly, which somehow made them heavier. I didn't feel anger first. I felt clarity, because in that moment, something aligned in a way it hadn't before. All the small moments suddenly made sense. All the dismissals, all the distance. And for the first time, I stopped trying to interpret her behavior in a way that protected us. I saw it exactly as it was. So I said it. "Then watch me walk away." She expected resistance. She expected negotiation. She expected me to stay inside the structure we had built. What she didn't expect was silence after that sentence. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't demand anything. I just walked upstairs. And then I did something that changed everything. I stopped. I stopped texting first. I stopped adjusting my schedule. I stopped asking where she was. I stopped trying to hold something that clearly didn't want to be held. It wasn't dramatic. It was controlled. Days passed. Then a week. She noticed. Of course she noticed. At first, she responded with subtle tests. Late-night messages. Short questions. Minimal effort attempts to pull me back into orbit. I replied politely, but I didn't engage. That shift confused her more than anger ever could, because she had built her sense of control on my predictability, and I had just removed it. One evening, she walked into the living room and said, "You're acting strange." I looked at her and said, "No, I'm acting consistent with what you said." She paused, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty. Don't overreact, she said. I'm not reacting, I replied. I'm adjusting. There's a difference. The tension in the room changed after that. Not louder, just sharper. She started paying attention again, not out of affection, out of disruption. But attention isn't the same as respect, and I wasn't interested in temporary corrections anymore. A few days later, she asked, "Are you seriously thinking about ending this?" I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was I had already ended it internally. I'm thinking about whether it ever existed in the way I believed it did, I said. That landed harder than anything else I could have said, because it questioned the foundation, not just the future. Second pause, and I want you to think honestly here. When someone finally stops chasing you after you've pushed them away repeatedly, do you miss them, or do you miss the control you had over them? She didn't answer that question directly, but her actions started to. She became more present, more attentive, more aligned with the version of her I had been waiting for. But timing matters, and sometimes change that comes too late isn't growth. It's reaction. One night, she said, "I didn't think you would actually leave." I nodded slowly. That's the problem. Silence filled the room again. I said something I didn't mean, she added. No, I said gently. You said something you believed in that moment. That's more honest. Weeks later, we sat down like two people negotiating the end of something that once felt permanent. No jilling, no accusations, just clarity. We agreed to separate, not because of one sentence, but because of everything that sentence revealed. There were no dramatic exits, no slam doors, no final speeches. Just two people acknowledging that respect, once broken, doesn't rebuild itself through intention alone. The house felt quieter after she left, but also felt lighter, and that difference mattered more than I expected. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel defeated. I felt accurate, and sometimes accuracy is more valuable than comfort. Months later, I heard through mutual connections that she had moved on quickly. New circles, new attention, and for the first time, it didn't affect me, because I had already made the decision that mattered. I had chosen not to stay where I was considered replaceable, and that choice didn't just change my relationship. It changed how I saw myself, because walking away isn't always about leaving someone else. Sometimes it's about finally standing with yourself.